Hello friends, my name is Rage Panda 1 and today we're going to talk about one of the most important things in the dang old game, and that is getting your districts correct so that you don't get stuck unable to level up your characters. It is a trap that a lot of people fall into, and I'm going to help you avoid it here. And if you're a person who knows about the districts from way back in the day, then please still watch my video. It helps the algorithm. At least chuck it a like. Now, when you're starting a fresh account, there's some things that you can get right that are really going to help you have a great time. The first thing that you can do to get right is to get your Travain companion to Mythic before you go summoning a crazy amount of dudes. 3 to 5 multi-summons is the most that I would get away with before I went for Mythic traits. And you have the Travain companion already. She happens to be 1 star. And because she's 1 star, you get to produce those traits really fast. So she is the most important thing to do even before your districts. But as soon as that is done, you do not go for level 22 traits. My brothers, you do not go for level 22 traits. It is a trap. Now, when we're making these traits, we're looking at going from level 18 to level 22, and I'm about to tell you why it's not that big of a deal. Here you're looking at Energetic. It's a 40% increase at level 18. Here we're looking at Brutal. It's a 40% increase at level 18. And with Fierce, we're looking at a 23% increase at level 18. These are the 3 common traits that you're going to be using more than any others, along with, of course, Honorable, which is one that we're going to use pretty often as well. You're not going to use Agile on every single character, especially since Speedy Boy is dead now. There are going to be some times that you use it, but it's really not that big of a deal. These 4 traits are the ones that you're going to care most about, with a subtle nod to our district traits of Confident and Noble. So let's look at these traits again at level 22. Honorable goes up from a 23% change to a 25% change. Is that worth a month of you grinding for intimacy? Or would you rather have 2 of your district champions at Mythic and getting those things set correctly? Let's continue investigating, shall we? Level 22 Fierce. Again, going up to a 25%. A very small increase at a level 22 trait. They are things that you want to have on your team. When your team is completed, you want to have that. But in the early game, not worth it at all, not even close. For Energetic, we're going up to 45%. If you remember, it was 40% before. Is it a good increase? Kind of. It's not worth all of the extra investment that you're putting in before other things that are more important. So what should you do instead? Step 1, after you get your Travain to Mythic, is to unlock the Griffin. It only takes 18 favorability. That's super easy to do just on accident. Or if you needed to use some of your companion summons, you could spend a couple of the heart boxes or maybe your 10 pulls from 1 dungeon descent, and you pretty much have this person unlocked. And then they're super easy to get to Mythic as well. Guess what you get for that? You get a best in slot district champion that literally cannot be beat. The male Griffin in his district cannot be beat. But on top of that, you're also getting another 1-star Mythic trait farm, which means that every single day you get a free marriage that costs you nothing, that gets you another set of traits or vigor that you can add to people on your team. Now, when you're trying to vigor up somebody who is a warrior or a tank, it is more efficient to use warrior fodder to complete that goal. So by having this warrior unlocked, you're already starting to build up fodder that's going to help you in that way. Because of all of that, I think this is the single best champion to get the 2nd Mythic companion on your team. So that's easy enough. It didn't take you that long to get it going, and now you've got some district champions you can start putting in that are absolutely fantastic. Where are we going to go from here? The Fulgar companion. The male Fulgar is also best in slot in his district. Hulking is a trait that you should really have on every single team. You really should have it on every single team. That's not an exaggeration. I'm not just talking on my butt on that one. You really should have that. Plus, since you're getting them somewhat early in the game, and these champions are both super strong, the male and the female, you're checking off a lot of boxes in a row that are going to help your team along the line, including getting hulking on your team, which, if you remember, brutal is a 5% difference from 40 to 45%. But if you unlock hulking, right, you're getting the entire bonus of hulking, which is like 26% strength on your entire team. Which one sounds better to you? Which one is helping your team a lot more? This one is, and it was cheaper, and now you have best in slot people in your districts. Am I beating the dead horse a little too much? Probably. But now we're left with an interesting conundrum. You've got a little bit of a choice here, folks. The Doombringer is technically best in slot in the district. However, since they're a 3-star, so they're not really that great for a trait farm, since we don't really care that much about their actual trait and putting it on people, and since the Doombringers just in general are kind of disappointing on the field, what you could do is you could take a small loss to your districts and you could get the Tidestorms instead. If you get the Tidestorms instead, the female Tidestorm is only about 400 points different in leadership from the male Doombringer. She's the second best in slot in that district, and it gives you access to aggressive, which is one of the best traits in the game. On top of that, both of the Tidestorms are extraordinarily strong champions in the early game, and for that reason, I chose to go for the Tidestorms. But technically, the Doombringers are best in slot. That's a choice that you're free to make on your own. You decide what thing you like the best, but I would say that eventually you want to have Tidestorms at a mythic level so that you can use the aggressive trait. Now, it is true that the traits are somewhat similar, so you might be wondering why I'm saying that aggressive is better. And I'm going to break it down for you. A lot of people in the early game, when the game just came out, they liked Lionheart and they wanted to use that instead. But the reason that aggressive is better is because there are a lot of shields and a lot of heals that also scale purely off of strength. So if you're increasing your strength, you have more options of how you're going to use that trait. It's possible that you could put Lionheart on somebody and have some modicum of success with it. I don't think it's really worth it, and I don't think it really performs well enough when you could simply just put Fierce on there and aggressive does the same job, and they're tuned to be about as strong as each other. If it were true that you didn't ever need a defensive trait, then it would be possible that you would go for aggressive, Lionheart, brutal, and fierce, and just do a ton of damage. But then you're going to be a glass cannon and you're going to die, and you're not going to do a ton of damage because you're going to be a corpse smoldering on the battlefield, and ain't nobody got time for that. So some secret tech here. If you wanted to, you could use male Travains to be in your districts in the entertainment section for long enough to get your 22 traits at this point. If you did it that way, I wouldn't be mad at you. I've made that choice myself. However, it is difficult to ascend the Travains. They're going to be a little bit behind, and you might find yourself wasting some of your mythic trait fodder to get them ascended up to a point where they're as usable as you want them to be. However, I know that a lot of people want to rush to 22 traits, so this is my fair compromise. You've got your Griffins, you've got your Fulgars, and then you've got your Doombringer or Tidestorm, whichever one you decide to go for. 3 of your districts are going to have champions that you can invest in and get them actually correct so that they're producing what they need to produce in your districts. At this point, if you want to go for 22 traits, it's fine. You do what you want to do. I have no problem with that. However, eventually, and when I say eventually, I mean immediately when you're done with those 22 traits, or before, you're going to be going deep into Lady Lux town to make her a mythic companion, because the female Lux actually is the highest leadership in the entire game, and she's the one you're going to invest the most in when it comes to getting your districts right. The only reason that we're not going for this first is because our Travains can already fill that slot, and a lot of the useful champions from the early game that we want to use on teams anyway are already in the entertainment district, so the odds that we're going to have those slots reasonably filled during this time are pretty high. So that's why we can justify waiting, even though the female Luxuriant is the best leadership character in the entire game, bar none. Now, some people might be concerned that this has changed over the past year, and I have done my research on this one. There is actually one champion that has fallen off from being best in slot, and you're going to be shocked that I'm still recommending only the second best in slot. Let's address that before I get a ton of comments saying, clickety clackety, Rage Panda 1, you missed this thing. No, I didn't. Here it is. It's him. It's the Ashmane. He is better than the Doombringer and Tidestorms. So if you want to try to get an Ashmane for district purposes and just, I don't know, try to get like 8 of them or something, that's on you. That's a thing that you could do in this world, and you're allowed to do it. For my money, I don't think I want to pay $400 to $600 per district champion to get them in there and doing the thing they need to do. So technically this is available, and if you happen to have one, he should probably be in a district if you're not using him. But if you are using him, you're not going to have district traits on him, and then there's no point. And then you also might be wondering about, but what about the 11,000 different champions, what came out in the past year? Surely somebody is better at leadership. The answer, unfortunately, is no. They all have 6513, which means that they're all usable. So if you're using one of these characters, maybe you starred them up into 7 stars, and then you decided, well, actually, I don't like the male Warbringer anymore. I think he's a big duty butt. Well, now you can marry on some district traits, and you can chuck them in the district and have a pretty good time. That being said, if you're actually using one of these characters and they are maybe 10 stars where the rest of your team for districts is only 5 stars, they might still be competitive. You might still be able to have them in there, and you'll be able to make that decision pretty easily on your own. Now, I hope that you're seeing how little of a benefit level 22 traits are and how important your districts are, because remember, this is an exponential gain. This isn't just the sort of gain where you get a little bit of extra gold in a lump sum. You start getting more gold, and when you get that more gold, you get to ascend your champions higher and level them up higher, including the champions in your districts. And when those champions are higher level, then you're going to be earning more gold, and then the process continues. So it's not like you're missing out on one chunk of gold. You're missing out on an exponential rise that continues to go up as the time goes on. And if you're free to play and you go for level 22 traits, you literally are missing a month or more of having these districts in order. It's really that serious. But hey, let's take a look at Noble and Confident and see what difference level 22 traits makes for those. For Noble, we have 40% increase to leadership. I'm sure you can guess what the level 22 trait's gonna be. That's right, gang. It's 45%. It's the same minor increase. It's not going to make enough of a difference to do the thing. And then for Confident, we've got an increase in leadership of 800 at level 18, and that goes up to 1,000. The funny thing is that the increase on Confident is one of the bigger increases that we see throughout the entire game for getting to level 22 traits. Unfortunately, it's still just not quite worth it. So we get our Mythic Female Trevane, Mythic Griffin, Mythic Fulgar. We make a decision about Doombringer or Tidestorm. Then we make a decision about going for Lux or getting level 22 traits, and we finish off with whatever we didn't just pick. After that point, you're completely set up. You can start saving for other things if you want to, but until you get that set up, I would honestly be waiting and saving most of my currency to make those things happen. I want to do Dungeon Descent to unlock my dudes, and I want to use Intimacy value packs to get them leveled up. That's mostly what I care about. And if the fishing event comes back around, you can spam some Intimacy like a crazy man. Hopefully they do that again. I hope I was able to put this into terms that helped you make better decisions, maybe if you start a second account, or if you're giving advice to people who have just started an account. And hey, if you're one of those people who has just started an account for the first time and you found this video, then I invite you to subscribe. It says it right there. That's why I put it there, to remind you. And maybe you could like and share as well. For now, I want to thank you for watching. I have been Rage Panda 1, and I will see you in the next one.